Welcome to Founder Tactics, a podcast about entrepreneurs and the communities that shape them. I'm your host, Julia Lucchiti, and today on the show, we're diving into the world of motorsports and simulation driving with Greg Giorgis, a mechanical engineer turned founder whose passion for racing began in his parents' basement and evolved into a bold business vision. You may already know this about motorsports, but it's not only extremely competitive, but it's also a very costly sport to get into. And that is where sim driving has a big impact. So first of all, sim racing is now widely used by professional drivers to improve their performance on the track. On the flip side, new drivers that can't yet afford to be on the track are able to use sim racing to hone in on their skills and really be able to stand out and have a better opportunity to racing professionally. So all this to say, Greg just might be the guy to discover the next Lewis Hamilton. Greg founded the Chicane Club. It's South Florida's elite sim racing social club, and he's drawn from experience of years working on professional tracks and is now bringing that knowledge into the sim racing space. What makes the Chicane Club special is its unique fusion of professional-grade training and social connection, and its powerhouse partnership with Wayne and Garrett Huizinga, the grandsons of the legendary South Florida entrepreneur behind AutoNation and the Miami Dolphins. Let's get into Greg's story and the tactical moves that helped him turn a niche passion into a community-driven business shaping the future of motorsports. Before we dive in, don't forget to follow and subscribe to the podcast on whichever platform you're listening to us now. This way you can always be notified of future episodes and also support the growth of our listening community. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we really hope you enjoy this one. All right. Welcome to the podcast.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for making the trip up from Fort Lauderdale today.
Absolutely. And it was nice to be able to come up and visit your space. That's one of the things that I love about interviewing and getting to know different founders is going to different parts of the city and seeing what people are doing in their businesses and the communities that they're building. And you have something very cool going on here, so I'm excited to dig into it a little bit. So thanks for opening your home to us.
Yeah, thank you for coming up. Can't wait to share it. I know what we're doing is, we get told all the time that what we're doing is really fun and exciting.
That's good.
And that's definitely true on a day-to-day.
Yeah,
here.
that doesn't mean it's easy.
No. It being fun does not change the fact that it's very difficult, but it does make it easier to work really hard for it.
Yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more. So let's start with an introduction and just getting to know a little bit more about your background. So where'd you grow up? How long have you been here in South Florida? Tell us a little bit about you, your family.
Sure. My name's Greg Giorgis. I grew up in very rural northeastern Pennsylvania. The closest town we have to us that anyone knows is Scranton because of The Office, which I hear no end of. We actually go out of our way to go to some of the restaurants and places from the show all the time. Love Michael Scott. But anyway, no, I'm from a small town called Milford, Pennsylvania, right in the tri-state New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania area. Very rural, very far away from cool cars and racetracks and whatnot. I grew up on 100 acres of hunting property in the middle of nowhere. Grew up with a great family, very fortunate that I had great parents, great grandparents. We had 4 horses, dogs, chickens, bunnies in the woods. So it was kind of like a small farm environment. And we weren't plowing fields, but, it's a lot of maintenance and everything for stuff like that. But again, very removed from racetracks and race cars and supercars and what South Florida is in a lot of ways. So, very self-sufficient. I mean, both of my grandfathers on both sides were home builders, which by definition is a very entrepreneurial thing to do, just to simply be a project manager to build houses and to handle all that. So, my dad was a home builder as well. My parents met in architecture school. I think if I didn't end up in loving cars and racing so much, I would have gone into architecture. So that's my second calling, maybe another life or something like that. But from a family of small business owners. So I think whether I wanted to or not, I was going to end up being a small business owner.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how I got drawn to it.
That's nice because you had examples of entrepreneurship at home, and I'm sure you heard about some of the struggles or even felt some of the ups and downs of that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was just day to day. I didn't really know otherwise. I mean, I've heard it many different ways, but you have to kill to eat. And I think if you're motivated to do that, it's a great way to live. like I said, we grew up on a farm, so we had to be very self-sufficient in a lot of ways, which is another thing that I think helps me a lot on the day-to-day running a business, is that you have to be independent. I mean, our closest grocery store was half an hour away, and our closest gas station was 20 minutes away. So, you know, with a bunch of horses and dogs and chickens and animals, like, you have to be able to take care of things. And so it was, you know, it was really formational for me, I think, at a young age, that I can see now that I didn't recognize when I was that age.
So in what way? Go a little bit deeper into that.
Yeah, I mean, I as a kid, you don't realize it's whatever house you're brought up in, it's just your normal. And I didn't realize that normal for me was not necessarily normal for other folks, or for, I guess I didn't know any other way other than starting a business and going out and finding customers and providing a service and delivering the entire thing from beginning to end.
Was there any fear or doubts in that process for you?
Yes. I say yes like that because I think when I started my first business venture, which was Symmetric Labs, I'm sure we'll go into it in more detail, but very briefly, it was North America's first ever mobile driving simulation lab. So we essentially put a driving simulator into the back of a trailer, and then went to big time professional racing events to support drivers and teams on race weekends on location. I think, yeah, there were a lot of fears and doubts, but a lot of it was, I think every founder for the first time, I'm sure, has all their naivetes about things that they don't see, and you don't know what you don't know. But I think that also gives you the blind confidence to do what you need to do. Because if you knew what you were going to be up against, you probably would never agreed to doing it in the first place. Yeah. Leaving a salaried, full-time paid position and the comforts that come with that, if you knew what you were up against, you probably would never do it.
Yeah, it's so true.
That I see now, and I'm glad that I leapt into doing what I did.
So before we dive into Symmetric Labs. Mm-hmm. Tell us a little bit more about your professional career. Like, what did you do prior to that, so that we can understand what was the setting of the stage?
Sure. So I grew up, I'll try to make this as short and sweet as I can. I grew up loving cars from before I knew why I loved cars. A car was my first word. I know it's a little cliche in the world that I work in, but it was. Always loved cars and racing, wanted to be a race car driver, idolized race car drivers. You're probably going to hear me refer to a lot of racing terminology and refer to people and acronyms, so feel free to ask me if you don't know who I'm talking about or what I'm talking about. But I grew up really idolizing both Michael Schumacher, who was a very famous Ferrari Formula One driver, and Ayrton Senna, who's also a very prodigal Brazilian race car driver. So really grew up idolizing those guys. Racing wasn't really an option for me to be behind the driver's seat in real life. And, you know, simultaneously, I was very good and strong at math and science in school. So engineering very quickly became the option for me, or the path that I wanted to pursue. I loved tinkering, playing with go-karts, riding quads, riding my bicycle, stuff like that. That was very exciting for me. I was also really big into scouting. So I did a lot of Cub Scouts and Boy Scouts. I'm an Eagle Scout.
Awesome.
And actually, my first opportunity to do anything around motorsports came from scouting, believe it or not.
Really?
So my brother's Cub Scout leader worked with Ferrari North America. So he was like the lead master technician for all of North America for Ferrari. So he was the extension of the Ferrari factory in New Jersey. So he brought us to a Ferrari race event when I was like 10 years old. And that was the light bulb. That was the worst thing he could have ever done to me, because there was no turning back from that.
Or the best.
Or the best. And I mean, honestly, it's the best. I'm being sarcastic. I think about it all the time. I saw the photos somewhere.
How pivotal that was for you.
Oh, it was enormous. The people that I got to meet back then, and that I idolized then, I now have worked with plenty of them. Like, or they've literally been customers of mine, which totally blows my mind. But all of the point is that I was like hugely inspired from a very young age. I think one of the things that I feel really the way I look at it is that I'm very fortunate, is that I've always known what industry I want to work in.
Oh, wow.
And how I want to do it and what I want to do. Like, I see that there's sometimes I went to Penn State for mechanical engineering. I graduated in 2014. I think what I saw a lot from other students is, they might know what field they want to go into. They have their degree picked out. They know what company kind of loosely or what they want to do. But I always felt that I knew with a very strong compass internally what I wanted to do. And I feel very fortunate with that because I feel like not knowing that would have been very difficult to find your footing. And sometimes you find it later.
Some people don't find it at all.
And some people exactly don't find it at all.
Yeah, I definitely, that resonates a lot with me. Just, having very clear what I want and what moves me has been, I almost feel like there's two sides to that coin. For one side, it's really great because you know what you want. And on the other side, it can be really challenging because nothing else will suffice.
I could not say better myself. Yes, totally spot on. Sometimes I go home after working 14 hours for the fifth day in a row, and I'm like, why do I do this again? I don't even understand why I care about this so much. And then I think about the people that I meet or the people that I work with, the places that I travel to, what it is that I do, how fortunate I am with all of that, how much I really like it. And I'm like, stop questioning that. Just move on from that. Just enjoy this thing that you love.
So the Ferrari event, you went to the Ferrari event.
Yes.
You said, wow, this is what I want for my life. You're 10 years old.
Yes.
What was next?
Yeah, school. School was next. And I say
so in the way.
It was so in the way. Yes. I am not an academic. I did not love academia. I knew that, doing well in high school and getting into a good university and then getting the degree and checking all those boxes, I knew that was important.
Yep.
But I hated every step of it.
Yeah,
I just felt so bound up with it that I don't want to study a textbook or take a test because that's not real world with anything. I just couldn't wait to get into the real world with stuff.
Most entrepreneurs don't do that great in school, and they're just doers, When I started to understand that more about the entrepreneurial profile, it was actually, I was watching some videos from Techstars. They're an accelerator based in New York, and it was describing, this is the profile of an entrepreneur. They don't do great in school. They're usually CD students, very action driven, and don't fit into the normal molds of education. I was like, hey, this is me. I'm an entrepreneur. This is great. This is good news.
I totally relate to all of that. So a lot of school, a lot of math and science. When I was at Penn State, I think if you look back and you could somehow add up all the hours, I probably spent an equal amount of time as my studies as I did on an extracurricular there called Formula SAE. So Formula, it's run by the Society of Automotive Engineers, which is the SAE part, but it's the world's largest collegiate design competition where you build from scratch a complete race car every single year. So it's largely engineering driven, but there are some business and marketing aspects to it as well. Mm-hmm. So I was very heavily involved with that at Penn State for 4 of the 5 years that I was there. And to me, a lot of students come out of that program and they go work in other quote unquote high performance scenarios. And I'm not just referring to motorsports, but SpaceX very heavily recruits from that program because it's, it forces you to work in a very heavy team environment, very difficult hours on very high performance engineering scenarios. Again, not talking about racing. I'm just talking about very tight margins of operation. But I just happening to work in motorsports, I use more of that day to day than I do my fluid dynamics or my 400 level engineering classes in a lot of ways. But it also taught me project management and taught me a lot about failures. I mean, building a race car and watching it burn to the ground or crash and break and fail repeatedly was really good experience and practical experience that I don't know that an engineering class would have taught me otherwise. So it paired really well with school. But once I got out of school, man, all right, the restraints are off now. I can really start, doing what I want to. I graduated in 2014. At the same time I was going to school, so on summers, weekends, breaks and whatnot, I was working with an independent Ferrari service shop and racing team. I started just washing cars with them because at the time when I was 18, I didn't have a lot of experience turning wrenches on cars or working on them. So I started washing, and then that turned to doing oil changes, and that turned to doing a little bit more work. And now we go to the racetrack and we can take care of some things. And that evolved over all my summers at school so that by the time I graduated, I went and I worked at this shop full time as like a team manager and kind of a junior engineer, managing all their programs when we went out to events, talking to customers, helping them get into the car, helping them get out, manage everything from the operations side. That led to an opportunity where I got to do much more professional level engineering with I called a Ferrari Challenge team, which is a professional series with, again, brand new race cars, big budgets, real racing at real tracks. That was really like, I finally got to sink my teeth into like real racing, doing it all the time as an engineer. And then that very rapidly took off for me. So I was in a Ferrari team. Within 6 months, I was involved with the Lamborghini team in a similar capacity, and then a prototype team, and then a GT3 team, and then it was like full-time, and I moved to Florida because it was all happening so quickly. I started where I was living in Pennsylvania, and then I would fly into the races just to work at the races, and then I fly home and then have to keep my regular day job. But by 2017, I had so many of those going with so many different teams that it really became my full time. So I found a way to leverage that into me justifying a move to South Florida. One of the beautiful things about South Florida within motorsports is that it's one of the only places that you can drive a race car 12 months a year because of the weather.
Right.
It's a little hot in the summer, but that beats 2 feet of snow in the rest of the country.
Yeah, absolutely.
So that it just took off, and I was just working for multiple teams, multiple programs, kind of in a similar capacity, like what we'd call like a junior engineer, where the senior engineer would be making like engineering decisions with the car from session to session. So we're going to make this alignment change, or we're going to change the rear wing, or we're going to change the setup in one capacity. I would be the junior engineer going through all of the data, all the electronics. Usually the junior engineers are the younger, more tech-savvy ones, and the senior engineers are the older guys who have many years of experience, and maybe you're not so good at operating a laptop. There's always a spectrum on how that operates. But
yeah,
what I think was really fascinating for me to discover in motorsports is that the senior engineers, the pro guys who have won many, many, many championships, they are not academics really usually at all. They're not looking at, when you get hired for an engineering position, you're very rarely, it's rare that they even look at a resume. It's rare that they look at what university you went to or what GPA you had or any of that. What they care about is how many years of experience you have and who you've worked with.
Right.
It's very experience driven. Some of the best engineers I've ever worked with do not have a university degree, which is wild.
Yeah.
But it's heavily experience driven field for me. I don't think I've ever. I was thinking about this morning. I don't think I've ever taken a job in my entire life that started with like a formal job interview. It's mostly just been super informal discussions. Oh, who do you work with? And then a little bit of reputation follows. Oh yeah, come on, let's go do an event. And then you do like an event with them, and then it takes off from there.
Very relationship driven.
Yeah, very relationship driven for sure.
And what was the pivotal moment for you that you thought to yourself, well, I've been working with these incredible teams, and that you thought to yourself, it's time for me to do something on my own? Was there something that happened, or what shifted your mindset?
Yeah, so in 2018, I was running with one team I was working with essentially full-time. I was traveling about 25 weekends a year. When I say weekends, I really mean like 5-day weeks that start on Wednesday. Because race weekends, they're weekends that the races are Saturday, Sunday, but like we arrive at the track on Tuesday night.
Right.
I was doing about 25 of those a year, so a lot of travel. I think I started discovering, as much as I was really loving what I did, working on teams, being a key player in like winning races, winning championships, being a part of like the meat and potatoes of what it is to go racing, I felt that no matter what program I had worked on, what level I did it with, the ultimate goal at the time for me was I want to go work on the Ferrari Formula One team, because that's the most glorious top level thing anyone could ever dream of doing. I think that year I got to meet a couple of people at a technical level on Formula One teams, and they're all like, you have to really want to do this. You're only going to do it for a few years. You won't have a personal life. You're not going to make a lot of money. If you make one mistake, you're kicked out the door, and because there's 100 people waiting to take your position. And that just didn't sound fun for me. Like, if I'm doing this because I really love it, why would I do something that's going to make me not love it? So I discovered that wasn't something I wanted to do. The reason I work in motorsports is because I love it, and I never want to engage with it in a way that's going to make me not love it. And if I know that walking into it, I'm not going to touch that. Like, I'd rather just be an F1 fan than ever try to work there.
I think that was very realist of you to see it that way instead of being like, this is an incredible opportunity. I've always dreamed for this. I'm going to do it anyways. And yet it would have perhaps cost even the passion that you have. Like maybe it would have chipped away at it.
Yeah, I didn't want to do that. I didn't have an opportunity from Ferrari like on the table. Like I wasn't at that point, but I saw that I was in a path that, within the next 4 or 5 years, if I really want to do that, I can start making career decisions that will put me in a position to do that someday.
Right.
But is that what I want to do? No, I'd like to have a house and a family and to not travel all the time. I still love racing, and there's a way to do that.
Totally.
I think the other thing that was really big for me is that I think in motorsports more than I've only worked in motorsports, so I can't say outside of the industry, but you have to be very internally motivated. To be successful as an engineering level, you have to be very, very motivated on your own. You're not motivated by pay.
Why is that?
Because I think, one, there's a lot of money spent in racing, but it's not, generally speaking, it's not going to the people. There's a lot of very expensive materials and logistics and a lot of things that go into motorsports. One of the small little in motorsports, how do you make a small fortune in racing? You start with a really big one. Motorsports is a black hole of money for a lot of people because it's something that everyone really loves, and we're just there because it's like a drug to all of us.
Right.
To the drivers, to the engineers, to the crew, we're all there because we love to be there and we really want to be there. And the only way you hold on to that position is by being better than other people. I've seen a lot of people in racing who, I want to be a crew chief or a mechanic or a driver or an engineer or a team manager or whatever. And they get an opportunity to work on a team for one event, which is usually how it starts. And 75% of people don't come back. I don't have the data on that, but like 75% of them realize this is not something that I want to do. This is just too much. It's 16-hour days, 5 days at a time, away from home, not getting necessarily paid very well. So you're only there if you want to be.
So you start to reconsider how you want to live out your passion in your work.
Yes.
And then?
Yeah. Then in 2018, I was starting to put my plans together for what I was going to do with some racing teams in 2019. Long story short, the powers that be that determine how much I got paid and determines how I was going to engage with things very much like kept me on a very short leash. And I was like, hey, I want to be paid this much and I want to do this. And they're like, no. And I'm like, that doesn't really sit very well with me. I don't love that. And I discovered that, the only way to change that, anywhere I go, you're going to get paid incrementally a little bit more. And then there's eventually a ceiling. And the only way to truly make this kind of phase shift or big shift in how I want to do it is I need to be the one in charge of what it is I'm doing.
Yeah.
So we need to, as much as I love engineering and working on teams, and part of me wishes I can go back and just do it now because it'd be simple and fun. I know it's not that simple, but I discovered that no, we need to, the small business owner family that you came from, we need to tap into that now.
That's great.
Now is the time to do that.
Yeah. So there was a certain very hard work, passion, and a moment that you were living of a lot of dedication for many years. Mm-hmm. And then you kind of got to a place professionally where you just weren't satisfied with some of the guardrails that existed, or maybe even politics that existed, that kept you from doing as much as you wanted, having more liberty on what you can make financially, perhaps creative freedom. And so you start to, think, now might be the time to step out and really pursue building something on my own, which is when you started your first company.
Yes. So like I said, early in 2018, I was trying to at this point, I discovered that pretty much a year out, you have to start planning your plans for what team you're going to work on and what you're going to do the next year. Mm-hmm. So as much as I was starting to get frustrated with the powers that be, with the teams that I worked on and the ceilings and guardrails, like you said, I was also starting to formulate, okay, so what is it that I'm going to do? So one of the most fun parts of motorsports, as an engineer that I ever engaged with was working with drivers. How do we go faster? Like, everyone's really talented. We have a really fast car. We have everything we need. How do we beat the guys across the paddock from us that are trying to do the same thing? And that part of that process was just so fun to me. Like, that was just like this. That's why I do all this. That's my favorite part of all of it.
It's like the human engineering.
Yeah. It's how do we make the car faster? How do we make the driver faster? The craft of driving and racing and trying to eke out milliseconds over someone else. That part I really liked. So going back to my childhood, one of the ways that I engaged with motorsports at a really young age that was really cheap and very safe that, I couldn't go racing as a kid, was simulators. Like, I started with my PlayStation in my parents' basement, late at night, getting yelled at by my parents that I need to do my homework first. Playing like racing video games, like anything from Need for Speed, which is like super arcadey and like a video game that can all relate to, Grand Theft Auto, and then stuff that's a bit more realistic, like Gran Turismo and Forza and stuff like that. I still have my original copy of Gran Turismo. My parents got me when I was a little kid. I'm like, you guys should have never bought this for me. But I played with simulators from a really young age when the technology was just coming out for them. So for a few $100s, you can get a steering wheel and pedals, and then you get some screws and some 2x4s, and you bolt together this little frame, and you rig it up, and now you're somewhat driving a car around a racetrack. So that's something I did from a really young age. And then when I was working on teams, I still had the same equipment, like in my spare bedroom in my apartment, set up. And every time we'd go to a race, I would go on like my homebrew simulator and drive it before the race weekend. Like, okay, what does this track feel like to be as a driver?
Oh, nice.
In the car with the proper track, and try to drive it realistically. And at the time I was okay, but I'm not great like I am now. And that would give me a very unique perspective. So then I'd go into the race weekend and I'd be like, oh, turn 7, that's okay. This is how we drive that corner, because that's how I drove it in the sim. And then like we would work through the process of helping drivers go faster. And then that was always like free training for me to become a better sim driver. So the sim part was always just like a fun hobby side thing for me. But I started seeing on race weekends to go racing and pay the bill for it yourself, which is kind of what we in the industry we call gentleman driving. Yes, it's a sexist term, unfortunately, but it's a term used for when you're not being sponsored to go drive. You're essentially paying the bill for it. Yeah. Racing is very expensive. I mean, to drive a GT3 or GT4 class car, we're looking at operating costs that if you look at what you spent all year and you divide it by the number of hours that you drove the car, we're looking at around $10,000 an hour.
Whoa.
Yeah, so it's really expensive.
And I'm here complaining about horseback riding lessons being $150.
Yeah. Racing is a very...
I'll stick to horses.
Yeah. Racing is a very expensive hobby, and even if you're really good, it's still very expensive. But the point is that when you come to race weekend, you're spending $40,000, $50,000 a weekend, or hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, however you want to look at it, or millions of dollars a year to go racing. All right, well, how do we actually go faster and beat other people? So I saw this opportunity, and I started asking myself, why has no one brought a really good simulator to the racetrack? I mean, on a typical race weekend like we're talking about, these 5-day weekends that start on Wednesdays, you only get usually 2 to 3 sessions per day, maybe half an hour to an hour apiece.
Right.
And then as a driver, you kind of don't have... I mean, there's debriefs and meetings and all sorts of other things you have obligations to go through all weekend, but like... if you could get on a simulator at the racetrack and do another hour of practice between your practice sessions to try a new technique, to try the things that we talked about in our engineering debriefs, to try those things, wouldn't that be a huge value add? Yes, like huge. It's major.
Plus, one thing that I've been thinking about regarding your work with the simulators is the neurological connections that are being made by visualization, and you're aiding with visualization on steroids.
Yes.
Because, because athletes, high performance athletes, I'm sure drivers as well, can use strategies of visualization to improve their performance. Mm-hmm. And so essentially you're able to coach them and help them work through that visualization side with real simulation tools.
Yeah, that's what's so exciting about it, is that it's evolved so much like that. Like, the movie Rush came out, I don't know, 10 years ago. It was a Ron Howard movie that detailed the 1976 season of Formula One that was a race between Niki Lauda, the Ferrari driver, and James Hunt, the McLaren driver. I think there was a scene somewhere in the middle of the movie where James Hunt, who's played by Chris Hemsworth, Thor, he closes his eyes and he visualizes driving the car around the track. That was what you did in the prior to like 1980s when we had film equipment. You would straight up, like the way you would work as a driver at getting better is you would close your eyes and you would just visualize driving laps. And they would do it all the time. It was the only way they could practice their craft outside of the car. Right. There was no simulator. Video equipment wasn't really possible to use yet. Without like literally strapping a giant camera to the top of a car. It just wasn't convenient. It wasn't a training tool that they had. And then in, the 80s and 90s, onboard cameras were introduced where we had cameras on cars. So now we can at least watch a replay of what you did, and we can actually visualize what those laps look like. You can watch that for hours and hours and hours and hours. And on real race weekends, obviously that's a big part of our debriefing process, is watching the video and looking at the data to kind of, build a picture of what's going on, talk through it. How can we make this better? Simulation brought that to a new level, where now not only are we watching it or visualizing it, we are actually doing it. Granted, the forces aren't as extreme on your body. With modern motion simulation, you can feel some of the forces at play, the higher frequency, like the haptic sensation. So you can feel the car roll from side to side. You can feel a bump or a curb or a wheel locking up. You can't do sustained G-forces. There's no engineering shortcut for any of that. But, we can actually go and physically drive a car. We can turn a steering wheel that feels like the real car, that's the ergonomics of the real car, that we can drive a car with the physics that behaves just like the real car. And then now we have models of racetracks in very, very high detail that are just like the real thing. So to be able to do that in between your practice sessions in a real car, we're just going further up a learning curve than the next guy is.
And how quickly were you guys seeing improvements when you were on the track? Because you're literally in the playing field. The guy's going to drive in a few hours. He's on the simulator, and you're able to look at that data before and after. How quickly were you seeing improvement?
Oh, instantly. Like, it makes a huge difference for drivers. I mean, the number of championships and races that were won, the drivers are using everything at their disposal, and we're just a piece of that. So when they win, I feel a small part responsible for helping to get them there. We would build custom programs for every driver and team that we worked with that just suited what that driver and team's needs were and kind of what that driver needs to work on.
So give me a specific example.
Sure. Let's see here.
Is it like they're slowing down on a corner? I'm probably not the best person to walk through example.
No, it's okay. Sure. So this is convenient. So every year, the start of the IndyCar season. So IndyCar is like American Formula One.
Yeah,
the cars are all
familiar.
The cars are all essentially equal with each other. They have some small tuning differences, but the cars, Formula One, the teams build their own cars. IndyCar, they're all the same car. The start of the season is always at a street race in St. Petersburg, Florida, which just happened to be this past weekend for this year. It is a street race, which means that track only exists to drive a race car on for 3 days a year. Other racetracks, you can go, if you have an unlimited budget, we can go to Sebring or Daytona, write a huge check, and we can go drive that track as much as we want to and get practice laps in. St. Petersburg, that is simply not possible. It doesn't matter who you are. So getting testing there and getting competent with how to get around that track is really important. So we would bring our symmetric trailer and we'd park in the paddock next to the racing teams, and we would build a custom program for every single driver. So, a big part of the learning curve prior to simulation was learning a new racetrack. Like, where does it go? Where do the turns go? What are the techniques involved? How do we have to process, corners that are near each other? What are the braking points? What are the visual markers?
Did you guys already have that pre-designed? Like, when you're going to St. Petersburg, like you already have it mapped out and programmed into the sim, and you're just making small modifications?
Yeah, essentially. So we don't build the track models ourselves. There's a huge resource of tracks that are available online.
Oh,
and
excellent.
And then we're partnered with a couple of groups that have access to some more proprietary private stuff. For example, the St. Petersburg track model was very, very, very hard to come by, and it did not exist outside of our simulator, essentially. Because it wasn't publicly available, and because you can't drive on the track, most drivers went into that race blind. The only experience you have around the track is when you drove it the year before. And the year before, you'd never driven it before. So they only get, I think, 2 30-minute practice sessions, and then they have to qualify, and then they have to race.
Got it.
So if you can turn 100, 200, 300 virtual laps there ahead of time, you are sessions ahead of everyone else, and you can go out and be fast right away. It was just, that was always one of our busiest events because you simply can't go testing there. But even if it's a track that you can go testing at, it's cheaper than testing in real life too. Like I said, you're looking at expenses in the range of $10,000 an hour and up when you kind of amortize the expenses out. That if we can go to drive Sebring, for example, in the sim ahead of time, you're just further up the learning curve when you go to do it in real life, and you can focus on the things that only happen in the real car and not trying to process everything all at once. So
you get the sim on a trailer, you're going to different races, and there's a line out the door, clearly, because you're improving everybody's race time, or was there some resistance?
No, there totally was resistance. Again, there's a lot of that blind confidence and naivete that starts with, I'm sure every founder faces the first time they start. I just thought as an engineer, if we build this really cool tool that's really, really effective, how much do I really need to go out and quote unquote sell this to
People
everyone?
will come.
They're just going to show up. I was like convinced the first event we ever went to that we'd have a line out the door and they'd pay anything I asked for. Yeah, that wasn't true. Not even close.
So what happened?
I networked with a lot of drivers that I knew, and I got them to come in and help refine everything that we were doing. And I was at events all the time and talking. I was trying to get the customers. We were trying to land the customers of people that I had already worked with and already knew in the paddock. It was tough. We did not make really very little money the first year, unfortunately, just because I totally underestimated selling. I was super engineering brain. I'm just like, hey, this is a super useful tool. This is what it does. Let me know when you want it. And this is what it costs.
Whenever anyone tells me they're interested in starting a company or that they want to step into entrepreneurship, the first thing I ask them is, do you love selling?
Yes.
Because that is going to be one of your top responsibilities.
Yes. I think I had a lot of negative stigma in my mind around selling that I was so afraid to be like this greasy used car salesman.
Yeah.
That I was like, I don't want to be that wheeler and dealer trying to make those deals and make people feel uncomfortable, because that's how I feel when people try to sell to me.
I don't like pushing anything on anyone.
I don't push anything. That's why I was always just like, hey, we're here. This is what we do. Let me know if we can help you, type of thing.
So how did that change? Because in the beginning, it sounds like you were a lot more timid and didn't really want to have those conversations because of the stigma that you had. How did that start to change?
The first step was in noticing that was the problem. that took a lot longer than I probably thought it.
Oh, it hurts so much.
In hindsight, I'm like, man, how did that take that long to realize that? I think one of the single largest things that has been a huge quantum shift for me was working with a business / life coach. That's been the biggest thing for me because, you actually know him, Jason. I work with really close.
Shout out to Jason Dukes.
Jason Dukes, Captain Star Coaching, helping recognize the blind spots, because the problem with the whole point of blind spots is that you can't see them. If you knew what all your weaknesses were, you'd at least know how to work on them. But if you don't know that they're even weaknesses in the first place, how do you work on stuff? I think that the biggest one of the ways of looking at what are the challenges of a founder is trying to learn what you don't know. It's easy when you know the things that you don't understand or you don't know how to do, because it's more one-dimensional and you can at least work on educating yourself on them. But when you don't know the things you don't know, it's very hard to overcome that. And that's what a coach helped me see.
What prompted you to get that help?
Well,
were you like, I'm not selling, I need a coach?
I recognized that the biggest limitation for the business was not the product that we offer, where we were, how we were marketing it. Well, maybe a little bit in how we were marketing it. The biggest limitation I felt was me. Like, I am the thing that's preventing the growth in this, because what we do is there is a lot of value in this, but I'm not doing something that I need to be. And I didn't know what that was. Jason approached me at an event halfway through our first year. We got to meet, and he's like, "Hi, I'm a business coach and a life coach." And I'm like, "Wow, that sounds like snake oil. That sounds like complete garbage." And like for the first 6 months, he would occasionally reach out to me. And I would like be super dismissive and probably downright rude to him because I thought it was complete crap. And the year continued to go on, and we continued to not change and have struggles and not make money. And then I started like asking myself, maybe he's not full of crap. Like maybe there is something in this. I know that I need to get better at this, and maybe he can help me do that. So like I called him out of the blue after 6 months of being a jerk to him. I'm like, "Hey, can we just talk? And like, can you just explain to me what it is that you do and how it's not snake oil?" So we talked, and he actually made a great case for it without being a used car salesman. Again, because I'm super adverse to stuff.
And Jason is super down to earth. I think I think a lot of those like misconceptions come from like past experiences, and then somebody comes and like wants to coach or offers coaching, and there can be resistance because of those past impressions, because Jason is like everything but that, right?
Exactly.
Like he's just so great.
Yeah, once I got past like the threshold
and so generous too.
Yes, yeah. And the thing that I found was really important for me, and that I would recommend any founder who's looking for coaching like that. One, if you're a founder, you should be looking for coaching like that, because you can always be doing better, and everyone has blind spots they need to work on. One thing that is very helpful for me is that Jason has a long history of working in motorsports himself.
Correct.
I won't go into his history, but he's worked a lot in motorsports, and he knows how the industry works. He knows the big players. He kind of knows the stresses. He knows how like the level of intensity that's involved with all of it.
Yeah. He's definitely specialized.
He's very specialized. So for any founder that's looking for a coach, try to find someone. My recommendation would be try to find someone who has the industry experience, at least remotely close to what it is that you do. I think it's super personal, because
there's the human connection.
There's a human connection that I really felt that I need to have, that I do have with Jason, that I think is really important. And that's not necessarily a given with a coach. He's a huge confidant for me. I was literally talking to him this morning about a crack pipe idea that I have about something. It actually has some legs to it, but that was really important for me. Just helping to see what the blind spots are and how to approach them, how to prioritize, how to have a different perspective on things. I think the other thing that's...
Did you have to change... Sorry to interrupt you, but did you have to change your perspective on sales? I'm really intrigued by this sales piece, because it's something that I wrestle with trying to figure out. You know, you have ups and downs in business. Mm-hmm. And I start to question, man, am I doing something wrong? Or when you get it right, you're like, what was right about it?
Yeah. The worst thing is doing really well at something.
Give me some sales tips.
Yeah. The perspective that had to be changed was that when you're selling to someone, you're not a greasy used car salesman, and it doesn't have to come off that way. Like, but when you have to try to understand what it is that the customer wants, how to present it to them, what their priorities are, how they care about things, how they buy, knowing them. In motorsports, like I said, it's a lot of the people who are going to write the checks for coaching, like what we do with Symmetric. They're usually the other sponsors that are funding a young driver, or they're the gentleman driver who are high net worth individuals. So how do they buy things? They want it really simple. They want to know what it costs, how it's going to benefit them, and don't make it any more complicated than that. I would just go into these big, long, like engineering discussions about how awesome this is, and they're just like would glaze over and it would go right over their head, and it wouldn't make any sense.
Geeking out. That's a problem we have as entrepreneurs, because we're so passionate about what we do.
Yeah, that was the perspective that needed to be changed. Like, this needs to be consolidated. I think this is something that I put a lot of work into now. Is getting back in touch with what it's like to be a a newcomer or not an expert in my field. I've been paying attention to motorsports my entire life, and I've been working in it professionally for 10 plus years now. I go to Formula One races now, like I buy a general admission ticket and I sit in the grandstands and be a nobody, because it gets me back in touch with what it is like to be that type of person again. I can go work on teams if I wanted to. I can get pit lane access. I can get anything I want, but to get back in touch with what it is to be on the other side of the fence. And that's because, that type of experience at a racetrack is the people that we're trying to sell to now. Trying to get back in touch with that is important. Yeah, just seeing that sales is not this ugly, gross, uncomfortable thing. Like, you can help people, and you just have to explain how you're going to be able to help it.
Yeah,
help
and be very clear about that value.
Yeah, it's a lot of one-on-one selling with what we do. It's not like mass marketing emails. I mean, we do send out our mass emails, but it's the sales that we make are very one-by-one, individualized, private appointment type of stuff.
Yeah,
So just getting to know who everyone is. It's really simple.
With building out Symmetric Labs, is there anything about that first experience as an entrepreneur that shaped the way that you built out the Chicane Club?
Oh, yeah. So the way I describe how the Chicane Club evolved out of Symmetric Labs, it's really just we rose from the ashes of what Symmetric was. Symmetric wasn't a failure in the first place either. I think failure is a matter of just when you decide to give up. And if you don't decide to give up, you're not failing. Mm-hmm. But Chicane Club is just a rebranded Symmetric, and we decided to move from a mobile trailer operation to a brick and mortar. So one of the best lessons we found was that the best business we ever had with the Symmetric Labs trailer was when it was parked in West Palm Beach, and people would come to us with a group of friends, a case of beer, and a couple pizzas. And it was just fun. And it wasn't about necessarily trying to win a race for someone, but just putting on a really good show. And making sure everyone had a really good time. And we can do the coaching one-on-one stuff as well. But the pivot was in realizing the community aspect with everything. That everyone in motorsports are fans of motorsports, whether you work in it or not. We're all here because we really like it. And that's all it takes to build a community. Just to find that commonality, I think, was really important. So, like I said, the best events we ever had was when we were parked in Florida. So we don't have to travel. We don't have to pay to get into events. I can sleep in my own bed at night. Like, it was the perfect solution. So we decided to, find a space just like the one we're in right now. About 1,400 square feet up in Jupiter, Florida, about 20 minutes north of West Palm. And we decided to build out a pilot location with 2 sims in it, but also build a really cool space around it. It's not just about the simulators. This is about the whole experience when you're in or out of them and building that community around it. So I think that was the biggest pivot, was realizing that it's about the community. It's not about the tech. The tech is fun, but that's not what the community is built on. The community is built around the tech.
So you kind of noticed that there was an opportunity because you saw a lot of success when it was parked in West Palm, and you were probably tired of traveling all around.
That was convenient.
And wanted to be a little bit more rooted, and said, hey, what if we turn this on its head, and instead of traveling around, let's focus on staying here. And then you started to get traction.
Yeah.
Seeing a lot more results coming from that.
Yeah, for sure. And it wasn't that we even started from scratch, because I had 3.5 years of experience at the time that we started the build of the Chicane Club. So we had a community of people already that I didn't realize that I had. I had a huge network of people. So what was a really cool accomplishment is that when we had our grand opening for the Chicane Club in June of 2023, we had like more people that we could show up than we could fit inside the building.
Wow.
Which was, I realize now, a super cool accomplishment. It was all blur for me when it happened.
How many people do you think it was, more or less?
Probably 50 people throughout the day. And I think we had to have multiple openings for like past customers, and then like a new open house one for new people.
And you guys had 2 sims, so.
We had 2 sims, so like that's our big limiting factors, 2 people at a time. But realizing that we had that network of people and that community that was already following us and big supporters of ours, plus the experience of running a business successfully or not the last 3 years, was the big thing for us. That was huge. And as much as I wasn't lazy about, I personally drove the truck and trailer. We're talking a dually and a 45-foot trailer. In 2021, I added up all my travel time. I was on the road for 30 days of the year. 1 month of my life was spent driving a truck and trailer. And I love driving. There's no hiding that, but not a 50-foot combination that weighs 30,000 pounds.
Yeah, it's different.
That wasn't my idea of fun. And it was exhausting, and it was a whole month of business that I'm not making just driving on the road. So being home, sleeping in my own bed, being recharged, and having the energy to just come to a place that's not, trailers are big maintenance. So like it was just so much easier to have a brick and mortar location.
Yeah, no, that's so good. Such a great evolution for your company.
Yeah.
So we talk a lot about community on the podcast. I work a lot with building community. And really for me, it's just another word for network or relationships. What has community looked like for you in your life personally, like as you've built out this company? And even we can talk about it professionally as well. Like what has been the community that has been behind you?
Yeah. So like you, we are in the community building space. Like that literally is our business. We're a social club. So it is about the community. So in a business sense, it's community for us, but larger than that, just as another founder, it's also about the community of people from myself, our partners, the employees that we have working here, the tech companies that we work with to get the equipment, the hardware, the software, of course, our customers, our family, our friends, our supporters, the industry as a whole. Like the community is so big, and it just depends on what zoom lens you want to look at it with. I think in motorsports, again, it's so heavily passion driven that there's this immediate respect and appreciation for others that are hardworking in the field, because we all know what it takes to work at the level that we do, again, as an entrepreneur or as an engineer in motorsports or as a race car driver or however you want to slice it. There is an immediate respect that's built in because we all know how hard we're working to be where we are. So if you say, oh, hey, I'm an engineer on this team, I know what that means. And there's a lot of communality around all of that.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're not in motorsports by mistake. Like that never happens. You don't just fall backwards into a job because it will spit you out so fast if you don't want to be here.
Yeah.
So
how has community helped shape the direction of the Chicane Club and what you guys are building?
Yeah, well, like I said, the big pivot for Symmetric was realizing that it is about the community. It's not about the tech. It's about the community and building the experience around that. I think one of the things that was not lost, I think that's being refound now, was during the pandemic, was that we all became computer screens to each other. We all started existing through Zoom out of necessity. I mean, there's no avoiding that. And I think what we're seeing now is that in-person clubs and communities, there's like this, we're rediscovering how nice it actually is to have a physical space to meet people, to actually shake hands, meet face to face. There's so much that's lost in Zoom calls, I find sometimes, that I try to avoid Zoom calls. If someone's in immediate proximity to me, I want to go physically see them, shake their hand, and get to know them over lunch, or to go see them if it's an option. Thousands of miles away, that's a different story. But I think that's a really big part of it.
That's good. I mean, I completely agree. That's how, for me, like the podcast, I love having conversations in person and recording in person, being able to come see what you do. It's just a different layer of experience. I think it's so boring to sit in my house and have a conversation on Zoom.
Yeah.
So the human element is so important. It's so important. It's really interesting what you bring up about like the human connection and having more of these clubs. Because racing is one of them, but this can apply to different interests, right? Mm-hmm. We're talking about the community that loves cars and racing. So I'm interested in diving into a little bit more like what these engagements around the Chicane Club look like for community, because I know you guys participate within the community and nurture community in different ways. So the Chicane Club is a physical space that people have membership access to.
Yes.
And like, how are you the leader of this community? Like, what are you guys putting on the agenda that people are checking up to see and being like, okay, I want to make sure that I'm participating, that I'm present, that I'm meeting people, in a really practical sense, like how are you guys building community or managing your community? Yeah,
it's, and we have different software tools and online things that we use to kind of manage like the admin part of that. Obviously we have mass emails. We have one of the things we recently implemented was a Discord channel for all of our members.
Okay, nice.
I think it's really common to use WhatsApp or Slack or any of these different.
Is it pretty active?
Yeah, it's pretty active for sure. What's fun with us existing in the sim world, and which is an extension of the gaming world, is that we use Discord, which is really built for gamers. So we have both voice chat and text chat. That's really fun.
Like, do you guys host events? Do people come and schedule any time? Do you, like, I don't know if you guys go to car shows together. Like,
yeah, all of that. So with a membership, we have at least 3 events per month that are limited to exclusively to members only. For example, we had one last night that we run a different car and track combination. I lead a workshop for about 15 minutes on how to get around the track with that type of a car. And then we have competitions all night long with seeing who can put up the fastest lap time or who can race each other, and however we want to structure with all that. We also, once a month, we make an outing of just members out to the local indoor karting location called K1 Speed in Riviera. So we literally just go and we race each other there. It's the same track, it's the same group of people every single time, and we have so much fun doing it. Whenever we go out to car shows, we make sure all of our members know, and we always inevitably get like a dozen of our guys that come out or already in the show with their own cars.
How many people are a member of the Chicane?
We've got over 50 members now, which
Nice.
definitely far exceeded where we thought we would be at this point. We're now at physical limitations with the space. That's one of the big challenges with why we're working to do what we're going to do this summer.
What do you find there's more engagement with? Are they wanting to do stuff together here at the club, or is it scheduling individual time to race?
Yeah, I mean, obviously it depends from member to member. We have a lot of people who are more interested in the social aspects, and
Really?
I'm like, hey, do you want to come up and drive on your own? They're like, nah, I'd rather come up with a group. And then we have a lot of other people who are members who really come out for the one-on-one coaching stuff that we do, and then they occasionally come to the social activities. So it's a little give and take. We also do, like I said, our one-on-one coaching. So if you're a race car driver, you're getting ready for a race event at a track you've never been to, or you're going to upgrade the car you're going to drive in, we can help you get ready for that here.
Yeah. And what's the demographic of the members? I know that you work with high-performance drivers, but what's the bulk of the members? Are you seeing more people who have like other jobs, and then this is more of a hobby?
Yes.
Or like, I would say like hobby and professional would be perhaps the two categories.
Yeah.
Or is there more?
I'd say there's kind of 3 buckets.
Okay.
The first is just hobbyists. So people who are car collectors, they have supercars, or they just like racing, and they're just kind of regular people. They just like cars, and they don't have a simulator at home, or they love watching F1 or whatever it is, and they just kind of want to participate it beyond just watching a race. The next bucket I would say is that we have a bunch of young aspiring race car drivers who are in their teens. Usually they're very, very, very talented. They make me look bad when I get in the sim. Wow. So they're young and aspiring, so we do a lot of work with them to try to get them to the step where they can actually be a paid professional race car driver.
Yes.
And then we have guys who are a bit older, who are either gentleman drivers or they're veteran race car drivers who, they race all the time, and it's just a training tool for them.
This is nostalgic for them.
Nostalgic for them, yeah.
Okay, so with the younger drivers, what we haven't talked about is the importance of lowering the barrier to entry to racing, because racing is very expensive.
Yes. So simulation, what I love about it is that we have lowered, like you said, the barrier to entry really far compared to any other sport. Like, what's it take to play soccer? A soccer ball and a grass field, or just a field in general.
Right.
That's literally all it takes. Well, what's the minimum barrier to entry in motorsports? Or like, what's the minimum involved? This is a lot of money.
Be able to get your kids into karting.
Yes, you need usually supportive parents with a pretty hefty checkbook involved to go racing. Unfortunately, that's the consequence of it. And so many people around the world, just don't have the means to be able to do so because for any long list of reasons. Well, simulation has changed that. It's lowered it. There is still expenses involved. If you want a simulator at home, you can do it for a couple $100s or many thousands of dollars, but it's much cheaper than, your thousands of dollars an hour that we're talking about.
Do you have that vision for your business at all? Like raising a next generation of like who's like the driver that's going to be like super famous and like maybe made it through initial entry through the Chicane Club. Do you imagine that at all?
I'm working on it, actually. I have a couple of young drivers that I'm working with that we're trying to do that with right now.
That's great. I love that.
Yeah, it's what tech has done in the last, I would say the last 10 years, which is where this has started to happen in motorsports, is that traditionally the path to go, hey, I'm a young kid and I want to be a professional race car driver. The path is usually you need to find a way to go-karting, which starts at a very, again, there's a pretty high threshold to that to be able to afford to be able to do it competitively. Any Formula One driver prior to like the 2010, they all started go-karting. The last 5 or 10 years, that has started to change because simulation has become this alternate path, and it's becoming, I think, as strong of a path as go-karting is now, and I think it's about to eclipse that. The movie Gran Turismo came out, I don't know, a couple of years ago, and it detailed the story, a very real story, where they had an online competition in Gran Turismo that they picked the 20 best drivers in this one competition. They flew them out to a racetrack. They put them through this really intense training program, put them in real race cars on a track, and they picked the best one and then funded that driver to go racing GT cars and prototypes all around the world. He's now a professional race car driver. My only problem with that movie is that it came out just a few years ago, and it tells that story like that was an anomaly. It is not an anomaly. That happens all the time now, that sim racers go to real racing and they're very successful. It is like kind of the path, and it's cheaper than going karting now. And a lot safer, a lot more controlled. You can do it from home. Like it's just democratized motorsports far. It's the biggest single democratization of motorsports in history, I think, which is super exciting. I love that.
It is very exciting.
People around the world can race now. It's not just limited to those with, big checkbooks.
Yeah, and as you guys expand to a second location, is it going to be a second location, or are you guys moving to West Palm?
I would love to keep this location open, but I think we're going to shutter this one as we move into the next one.
Yeah. So, are you guys going to have more than 2 sims?
Yes, we're going to have the next location that we're building out now. We're starting the build on Monday officially.
Nice.
It's really exciting.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We're going to have 6 simulators, and it's going to be about 5,000 square feet. So about 4 times the size of this, with 3 times as many sims. Yeah, that's starting. So that was this location that we're in right now is our pilot, where we just test out the business model. Does this scale correctly? Can we afford? Can we be cash flow neutral or positive in the small scale? And do people like this? Can we package it the way that people want to pay for it? How do we sell it? How do we brand it? Like all those things. We checked all those boxes a year ago, and we've just been piecing together the bigger step of, okay, now, we know what this needs to look like.
Yeah.
How do we build the next full-scale operation?
That's really exciting. Mm-hmm. I'd love to talk a little bit about your partners. Sure. So you met your co-founding partners, the Huizinga family, in 2021. Mm-hmm. For those that are listening, maybe don't know, they are the grandsons of the renowned South Florida entrepreneur Wayne Huizinga, who was known for founding Waste Management, Blockbuster AutoNation. He owned the Miami Dolphins, the Miami Marlins, and the Florida Panthers.
Yeah,
it's like a mouthful.
It's a lot.
How did that connection happen?
Yeah, so Jason gets credit for this one also. A LinkedIn connection that he was meeting up with. Him and I would go to a lot of just car shows and race events and just go networking together. And he was meeting up with someone that was loosely involved with Formula One coming to Miami, which happened for the first time in 2022. So he met someone there that I shook hands with and kind of gave my 30-second elevator pitch on what it is that we were building at the time also. I got an email a couple weeks later from that individual, said, hey, I really liked, you had great energy, thought what you're doing is really cool. Let's talk about this thing with these, with the people that I work for. So we sat down and they pitched me on something that they were trying to work on. And I'm like, it's kind of dumb. It doesn't make any sense. Maybe you should look at this. At the same time, I was already building kind of like a very loose pitch on essentially what it is that we're doing now at the Chicane Club, about like, a brick and mortar with a bunch of sims and building a club around it. At the time, I did not know who the Huizingas were. I lived in South Florida.
I didn't either.
I felt stupid for not knowing who they were, but I'm not afraid to admit that.
Once I started working in Fort Lauderdale, I became more aware because there's a park named after them. Yeah. But yeah, I didn't know either, so I'm with you.
Now that I know them, I see the name everywhere all the time.
Yeah.
It's very cool, but Yeah, we got connected eventually. Through all that, I got to meet with Wayne the Third, who's now our co-founder.
Yep.
He came out and saw the trailer. We got in the simulator. Absolutely loved it. They're super passionate about what it is that we're doing. They love cars, they love racing, and they love sim racing specifically. Like that all comes together.
Wow, it's great that you guys have that in common.
Yeah, it's really cool. Unfortunately, I never had the opportunity to meet Senior. He passed away a couple of years before we met. But I've read a lot about him, watched a lot of his interviews, and I try to, pay some sort of homage to what it was that he was doing on a much smaller scale than Fortune 500, multiple Fortune 500 companies.
Absolutely. And what roles do each of you play in the Chicane Club, and how do you complement each other?
Yeah, so Wayne the Third, also goes by Trey, he's our co-founder, and he helps a lot on the business and admin back-end stuff. He's not here on a day-to-day. He wishes he could be, and he probably will be a lot more involved on a day-to-day at our new location that's closer to where he is. But Garrett, his younger brother, he's our sim operator. So he's in here all day, every day. Garrett and I personally built out this space. We took a year to renovate everything. So it's our blood, sweat, and tears that went into doing this all the time. And Wayne is, of course, supportive and helped all that happen from the back end. Yeah, so it's really the three of us that are the founding team that do all this.
Yeah, that's good.
And I'm the CEO that kind of makes all the big... I run the day-to-day.
Finding a co-founder is tricky. I think partnering with anybody is really tricky. Do you have any advice for people who are in the process of establishing key partnerships or even a co-founding partnership, like things to keep in mind and consider in that process as you're getting to know each other and perhaps even towards those final steps where you're like, wow, this does seem like it's going to be a great fit. Any in that process at all, do you have any advice?
Find people that you really like spending time around with, because you're going to spend a lot of time around them. You don't necessarily need to agree on everything. I think having different perspectives is actually a huge strength. I always told myself that if I ever met someone exactly like me as a co-founder, they'd be totally useless and we wouldn't get along. So it's actually good that we see things from very different perspectives, and with a hugely different skill set, but with a common passion. Agreeing with just ethics and how to run a business and having the same priorities, I think, is really important. It was hard not to be excited about who they were and what comes with their name, the things that they've done, and the recognition that they have in South Florida. That was obviously a huge value add, but that wasn't like the only thing that I considered. It wasn't really much of a consideration. It was, do I like them? Do they like me? Are we going to get along? Do we think the same way on the important things, and do we see different perspectives on the other things that we need to see differently on? I think that was what I really liked about it. And, I'd pitched to several other investors that in hindsight, I'm glad it didn't work out, because it wouldn't have been a good fit. I was just desperate for anyone to write a check for us to go do things bigger. I would say the other thing for founders looking for investors is don't just take the first opportunity you have with a partner, an investor, or co-founder, whatever it is. Like, really should take time to understand who it is that they are, and that you guys, you agree and you see things the same way, and that you have something to add to each other. It shouldn't just be whoever is willing to write you a check, because that won't always end very well. Just because you have a check, that might be the problem you're facing right now, is finding more financial support. But if you set that up in the wrong way, that could be very, very ugly very quickly. That's a bigger problem.
You were actively looking for an investor at the time?
Yes. Yeah, we definitely were. Okay. Yeah, I'd pitched to several others, and I was trying to set up other ones. But this one actually, they came to us, which was ironic how it worked out. But and yeah, there's a lot there. Like I said, they're awesome to work with. They do have the name recognition here in South Florida. I think what's nice with saying that we're involved with them is that it says that we're going to be here and we're going to be around, and we really care about what we do, and they have a reputation to uphold. So we're like, it's not dark money that's showing up and where is this coming from and why is it here? It's like they're public figures. People know who they are.
Absolutely.
So it's going to be very forthright. And
with so many people moving into South Florida, I think that people who are local or who have been here for a while really can appreciate, and it does transmit a sense of stability.
Yes, I think that's important, especially for a type of business that hasn't really existed before. We get some skepticism sometimes. We're like, are you guys, I'm going to pay for a membership with you guys. Are you going to be here next year? And I'm like, yes, we're going to be here. We have some very big things going. We're not going anywhere. So we're going to be here. And that stability, I think, is very, very nice for a lot of people.
And how are you seeing, like, we don't have to get into exact numbers, but financially, are you seeing growth in the company that you're expecting? Like, is it, or are you in an investment stage where it's like, okay, we're digging deeper right now?
Yeah, now that we got it to the point, we wanted the proof of concept. Like, does this work? Can we get to some sort of cash flow neutral or positive? Okay, we got to that stage about a year ago where, like, hey, this is working. It's trending really nice. We can push harder on selling and marketing and doing all that. But now we're going to start focusing on the next place. We want to build a full-scale operation that's going to really be our flagship. So right now we're heavily building towards the next place.
Yeah. But you already have this solid proof of concept that gives you the trust to make that next.
It was more abundant than we were hoping for. So I was like, okay, like we can always push harder on this, but we're going to put the resources towards the next place.
Yeah, that's good.
Right now. So that part's exciting. It's still intimidating. I mean, now we're going to we spent, I don't know, probably $250,000 to build the first place, and now we're going to be spending a 7-figure number to go to the next place. So, like, that's intimidating, and it's a lot of pressure.
But it's also why you do this.
And we have the proof, and we have so much know-how that we didn't even have before. So I'm very confident that it's going to work.
Yeah.
I don't think it's blind confidence anymore. I think it's actually very informed confidence.
No, that's great. So, I'm excited to see what you guys build out next. Also, you work with your wife, Daphne.
Yes.
And she's the director of marketing at the Chicane Club.
Yes, she is.
What has that dynamic been like?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. I love working with my life partner on a day in and day out. She's part-time with us right now. She's presently a middle school teacher, but she'll be coming full-time with us soon.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's been great. She has a very, very different perspective on things. That's what I've always really valued with her, is that I'm this crazy left-brain engineer, and I don't have like the finesse or the fine touch on anything you see public from the Chicane Club. She did. She's why the logo looks cool, why our Instagram's awesome, why our YouTube's awesome, why all of our marketing materials are great, why our events run smoothly. Like she's all of that. Yeah, it was difficult in the beginning when we started working together because like it was just like nonstop. And for me, it's 100% of my life is running this company. We don't have kids. We have an apartment. We have one dog. Like life's pretty simple. So I'm like 100% of my brain power is usually towards running things. And she's like, no, we don't need to be talking about work at 9:00 at night on a Saturday. So I think what was important for us to figure out early on was boundaries, like big time boundaries. So now we have very regular meetings on a schedule that we Zoom call. Like I'll be here and she'll be home, or she'll come in. And then usually outside of work situations, we always ask each other, hey, can we talk about work right now? And either of us are allowed to say no, save that for another time. And okay, that's no problem. I'll write that down. We'll talk about it later.
Yeah. So my husband also works with me. Tiago has his full-time job, but
Tiago.
but he also is like full-time available to advise me. And he takes one day off per month to help me operationally at the Fort Lauderdale Tech Meetup. And yes, I agree with you on the boundaries. I hear that from a lot of folks that work with their spouses. But I think that there's another side that I would add, that working with someone who knows you that well, I think they know like how to encourage or challenge you at the right point. Like if you're getting a little too comfortable, they know you well enough to know that, you know, comfort isn't what's best for you and that you need to push yourself in a certain way. I think that there's just some like deeper heart motivations and character things that they understand and can speak into that would take a regular working relationship, perhaps years to understand and be able to speak into as well.
Yeah, totally. She's my original life coach and always will be. Like she sees so many different things that I don't see about myself all the time. Like she's like, why are you so anxious right now? I'm like, what are you talking about? And then like, I think about it for 5 minutes and like, whoa, how did she know that about me? She is highly emotionally intelligent, and I'm just this brute that I don't see things that way, and I think I can control my emotions. Welcome to being a human in 2025. But no, it's very cool that someone who knows me so well inside and out, it's very valuable, I think, to have that. So she's just a different perspective. I have my relationship with Jason, who's my business coach, and sees things from his different way. And then I have Daphne, who sees things. She's here and she sees a lot of the stuff that happens, and we talk about it on the way home or at home when we do want to talk about work. So she helps me see a lot of stuff. So it's been very transformative for me. You have to get very comfortable being. This is super cliche for founders and business owners, but you have to be very comfortable being uncomfortable and constantly working on yourself.
Yeah.
If you can't work on yourself, or you don't like hearing other people tell you what you could do better, you shouldn't be a business owner. You shouldn't be a founder. Like, it's not going to go well for you if you're too rigid with stuff like that. So, and was the number one for all that for me.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Now, I don't know if you know this, but you're now part of my pitch every time I talk about the Fort Lauderdale Tech Meetup, because I'm like, we're based in Fort Lauderdale, but we have guests that drive down from Jupiter every month.
Perfect. I love it.
And what's cool about the fact that you come is I already saw that in my mind's eye, in my strategy when I started the Fort Lauderdale Tech Meetup. I saw us as an event that would attract folks from West Palm and even further up north.
I would have driven further. If you guys were in Miami, I still would have been at the
Wow. Okay, that's a huge compliment, because I don't even want to drive down to Miami. But I have to ask you, what is it that motivates you to drive all the way down to Fort Lauderdale once a month to network with people working in tech and other founders? Yeah,
so you and I have talked about this a little bit before, but like I'm an introvert. Believe it or not, most people don't believe me when I say that. I'm a huge introvert. So I have to force myself into social situations a lot of the time, because I know that the only way for me to get better at selling and becoming a founder, and I'm the face of the company that I own and work for, you have to talk all the time, and you have to pitch to different people. You have to spread the awareness. And I think that just coming down to people who kind of get tech, doing the elevator pitch over and over again, it's not redundant, but you just get more polish and practice, and you can read people better. I think the other thing that I really like with the tech meetup is that I get to meet other founders or people who are solopreneurs or, people working in a tech space, whatever, and hear what the challenges that they're going through. Because when you're in your own brick and mortar and you're just facing your own challenges, you feel sometimes very lonely, or you feel like no one else could possibly be dealing with the type of challenges I'm dealing with all the time, and you feel very isolated in that. But when you discover that all the other founders, all the other solopreneurs, the people working in tech, they have those same challenges, and they're way different challenges that are way harder, or just totally different. It's very reassuring that it's worth it. I'm not the only one dealing with this. We actually have it really nice in a lot of ways. That's very reassuring. You meet different people with different backgrounds, and it gives you a different idea. It sparks an idea here or there. It's very inspirational in a lot of ways. So, it's totally worth it for me.
Do you feel like it would be helpful to have something beyond just the tech meetup? Do you feel like between tech meetups, it would be helpful to have some sort of community to tap into in between, or is that like one event per month feel sufficient?
The one event per month, it's great as it is, and more could be done with it also. I think a digital format to engage with different people, like we do a little bit of that here, it's kind of supplemental to the in-person stuff.
Yeah.
I think we're all overloaded every single day with our smartphones. Like any of us, you just go through your phone and you have 37 notifications. Like, you had me put my phone on airplane mode, I'm going to turn it off, and my phone's going to blow up with all the stuff that's just stacked up. And that's after turning notifications off on 90% of my apps. But we're all overloaded with and inundated with stuff all the time, that sometimes, as a founder, I just feel like I have a plate that's a certain size and stuff is just spilling off of it all the time. So sometimes it's almost hard with digital platforms to engage with them, because it's just
It's one more.
That's the 37th group text I'm on.
Yeah.
I just can't keep up with any of them. So you kind of just start turning stuff off. So
Well, you've given me a lot to think about with the way you guys are building community here. So I was probing out of curiosity and market research.
No, it's good. And, I'm outside of having a business, I'm not very active on social media, but I feel like I have to be active on social media because I own a business. It's like this never ending cycle thing. Other people are more engaged on group chats or Discords or forums or whatever it is.
Yeah.
So like, I think that would work and I think it would supplement it really well. I'm just on so many of them already that sometimes I just tune out from all of them.
Yeah.
I just can't keep up. And then I click on it once and I have like months worth of stuff to catch up on and I feel bad. But I think the in-person stuff, it's really coming back and it's refinding its footing as being, there's some real value.
Definitely.
And a lot of it. And there's a lot of clubs that are being built that I think that's what we're doing with having a sim club. That this business model is taking off very quickly. I think we're doing it very differently, but that's not my point right now. I think we're doing it different from others, but it's taking off because sim racing for many years, let's say the last 10 years, again, you can have a simulator at home, you can race online against other people all around the world, but you're ultimately on your own and, your spare bedroom, your parents' basement, your garage, whatever it is. What we did is we put all the simulators in the building together. So now you're fundamentally doing the same thing that you could do from your garage, your parents' basement, your spare bedroom, whatever, but we're all doing it in the building together. So you can get out of the sim and actually fist bump or how much fun that is. And it's totally changed that experience. So
it's like by introverts for introverts.
Yes, we're a club of introverts, a non-antisocial social club.
That's so good.
So
as we wrap up, what do you see? I'd love to just close on this question.
Sure.
What do you see evolving in your industry within the next 5 years? And I say 5 years and not 5 to 10 because I feel like things are moving really fast.
5 years is a lot of time.
Yeah. So is there anything that you really see changing?
I mean, the tech is an ever-present part of all of this. The tech's going to continue and evolve. I think with where chips are going, with where AI is going, the tech is going to be crazy. And I can only speculate on where I think that's going. I think these in-person brick-and-mortar sim clubs or simcades or sim centers, whatever you want to call it, I think they're going to take off. I think they're all run individually right now for the most part, that it's all founders like myself who just had this crazy idea, we found the funding, we built this thing. I think in the next 5 years, I think there's going to be a consolidation of those, that the stronger ones are going to survive, the weaker ones, unfortunately, are going to be weeded out. It's capitalism 101.
Totally.
And that's going to be, and they're going to grow. And I think they're going to be made a lot more mainstream. I think motorsports has become a lot more mainstream than it has ever before, thanks to stuff like Netflix's Drive to Survive.
It's already happening.
Yeah. People know who Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton are, that 5 years ago, that was crazy to think that anyone would actually know who that is.
Yeah, that's great.
So motorsports is getting a lot of attention right now. I love it.
That's good.
I could not be more excited that the whole world knows what we're doing right now.
Yeah. Well, tell our guests listening, our audience listening, how they can connect with you and learn more about the Chicane Club.
Yeah, sure. So you can email me directly at greg@thechicane.club. Our website is www.thechicane.club. And the best way to reach out to us is to go to our Instagram, thechicane.club, and just send us a DM or something like that. If you're local to us in South Florida, we'd love to have you guys come out and see it in person and experience it firsthand.
Yes.
If not, if you're further away than that, then check out our YouTube channel for now as well. We do a lot of live streaming with a lot of our pro race events. We did a 24-hour race in here about a month ago with 8 drivers. So we ran the sims nonstop for 24 hours, and we did fairly well. So, through one of those, medias, and I'm sure you'll put the link to my stuff in the
Absolutely. For sure. And if you guys want to geek out on more of the technical stuff, Greg has had some great interviews where he goes really deep into all the inner workings of the software and the equipment that they use to build the sims. Mm-hmm. And that wraps up our conversation for today. Thank you so much again for having me, and we'll touch base again soon for sure.
Thank you for having me here.
All right. Thank you. Bye, everyone. And that wraps up another episode of the Founder Tactics podcast. Thank you so much for joining us, and we look forward to having you join us again on future episodes. Don't forget to follow and subscribe to our channel so that you can get notified of all the latest interviews that we publish. See you next time.